Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the welcome from Asian Gaming Summit. It's a pleasure to be here. So what I'm going to talk about today is an existing casino that's been running since the mid-2000s in the Philippines. We have two properties, one about an hour from Rizal, and the other one about a 4-hour drive north of Manila. Okay. So I'll just tell you a little bit about our properties. The Rizal property, both properties are themed. The Rizal property is Tuscan themed, and it overlooks Laguna Bay in Manila. The northern property, as you can see there, is actually called Santorini of Asia. It's Santorini themed, so everything is blue and white. And it has a golf course, it has multiple pools, it has a beach, it has a beach club, and obviously it has a boutique casino as well. So Rizal, we have 235 slot machines, 24 gaming tables, and in Poro Point we have around 350 slot machines and 36 tables in all. So small operations at the moment. So my slides aren't going to be as extensive as Trevor's sparkling new property that he has there. I'm going to concentrate more on what happened during the pandemic for our property, which I think any operator in the Philippines is going to be roughly the same thing that happened to their properties as well. So business during the pandemic, we knew early 2020 that something was going on with a pandemic or some kind of spread of a virus. But we didn't think it would affect us really that much. Maybe it would create a medical problem or we would have issues at some point, but none of us anywhere had any idea what impact it would have. So on 16th of March 2020, I was in Rizal, and my boss actually called me and said, "You need to get home now because they're going to close down NCR where I live." So I did that. And then we all went home, we closed down all the operations. And actually, again, I think it's the same as everyone. We thought 2-week holiday, 3-week holiday, maybe then we can get back to business. And it didn't turn out like that. The only positive during that time was that PAGCOR very early on set the rules and the protocols and the way that we have to manage the COVID within the casino environment. Now that was very important for us because a lot of businesses didn't know what to do. They had no proper guidelines of how to manage the COVID for their operations. And actually we found out as time went on that with PAGCOR, the reason they did that is because when the alert levels changed, we knew immediately when we could open, when we had to close, how many tables we could open, how many slots we could open as well. So that really helped us early on with how we manage that. So obviously throughout that pandemic period, right up until the end of 2021, we really didn't get any traction with our operations. We were opening, we were closing, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks we were open, then we had to close again. So really, the business never really picked up during those periods at any time, although we did have customers coming into our properties. Obviously, the headcounts were very low, not just because we were opening and closing. Of course, there was fear about the pandemic, the virus, how it's going to affect you. A lot of our customers are seniors, so it would affect them more as well. And basically, they're scared of what's happening in the Philippines. Once the vaccines kicked in, and once we got going in the Philippines, vaccination rates really picked up very quickly. I've been double boosted already, and they were making sure that everyone had the vaccine pretty quickly. So what do we do when we lock down? Now, one of the other problems with the pandemic is that we didn't know what was going to happen. So we have all these staff, all these properties that we would normally be operating. We can't let the staff go, so we actually paid the staff initially for the first few months of operations, or non-operations when we weren't operating, because we thought maybe a couple of months it will be okay. After that, we started reducing working hours. We didn't want to retrench staff because we didn't know when we would open back up again. Early 2021, it became obvious that the pandemic would drag on for longer. So that's when we started downsizing our operations at that time. Initially, we had two categories or two alert levels here in the Philippines. ECQ, which means everything must close, and GCQ, which means you can operate to a restricted level. And then they actually added, at the end of 2020, MECQ, which is modified ECQ, which means, again, limited operations, and then modified GCQ, which means that, again, it's a modified version of GCQ, so 4 tiers there. But we still had a problem as well in the Philippines because not only does the government designate the alert levels, the local governments can also decide what alert level they want. Now, it goes through an approval process, but we never saw that being declined. So in our northern property, we were closed more than we were in our Rizal property, a lot more. So that obviously affected business as well. And also the province in Poro Point, effectively the province was shut down until 2022. To really summarize, basically we were closed, or we were not operating anywhere close to our capacity until the end of 2021. March 2022 is the only time that we actually saw a change, and that's because they changed the alert levels again, which made it more flexible and more clear, and obviously the COVID cases and the deaths were going down. So March 2022, we really saw a change in our business, and it accelerated very quickly. The revenue climbed extremely quickly, especially in our northern property. So the recovery of our business, as I said, March 7, 2022 was when the province in Poro Point was allowed to open. And at that point, we really saw the business picking up significantly. So when we saw that the business was picking up, we had another problem, which I think was mentioned in the session this morning. We didn't have the manning to reopen or to operate at the capacity that we needed to. So that started us not just recruiting, bringing back retrenched staff, but also recruiting new staff, which we have only just managed to achieve this month after so many months. So although we did have a challenge, it just took longer than we expected before. The other things we did a lot of floor movement, slot machines, tables moved around. We downsized the operation. In the recovery period from March, we actually opened back up these closed down areas, and we moved machines around to optimize our business as well. And then the other big move that we made was opening 24 hours. During pandemic, we were only operating limited hours as well. So I think for the future plans, we did touch on this morning quite extensively, but we think by the end of 2022, we will be back to our pre-pandemic levels of revenue in both properties. I think that's being led by Poro Point, because Poro Point is unique because we have a monopoly there. The nearest casino to that area is Clark, which is a 2.5-hour drive. So we expected it to climb very quickly, and it did. We're actually expanding the gaming areas for both tables and slots. And also, as I said this morning, we're aggressively buying new machines, expanding our table areas, etc. as well. The other things we're looking at is optimizing our business. We've been talking to a lot of people this last couple of weeks, including here at the show, to find ways that we can make our business run itself better, because that's something we learned during the pandemic. We maybe weren't looking at some areas that we had to look at during the pandemic, and now we will continue to carry on and look at those areas. And then online we've been looking at, but we haven't actually launched that yet. And I think the other thing we're looking at also is the development of Clark in particular means that there's more people are going to start coming into the Clark area. And obviously we can see some of that business already coming to Porro Point as well. So we expect to concentrate on those areas as well. Thank you very much.